I'm here today with Alex Slors. So our topic is performance optimization through asset management. So Alex, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your connection with HOSPA?
Yeah, so I am the tutor for the asset management and performance optimization course. I have been doing that for the last 3 to 4 years with great pleasure.
Thank you. That's good to hear. So we're going to talk about not so much the course today, but just generally asset management and what is asset management. So my first question then, I guess, is how would you define asset management in the hotel context beyond just the financial oversight?
Yeah, asset management is just one of those terms that everyone can use, and it's not regulated, so it's hard. I think to define asset management is it's where you bring all parties together for the optimization of a hotel. And if you do it correctly, then that optimization works for the benefit of all parties involved. So what you usually see is that an asset management or an owner's representative is brought in by an investor who has limited knowledge about the hospitality industry. But I think it's very important that you recognize that all parties involved, so there could be a brand, there could be a management company, there could be the people in the hotel, all understand each other and work for the benefit of the hotel. And when you have that understanding, then you can create a better valuation of the hotel and as such serve the investor.
Okay, so if these investors or owners, what are they actually looking for? So when acquiring or developing a hotel, what do they really look for? Is it returns? Is it brand strength? Operational stability? Like,
it really
what is
depends. I mean, there's a great variety of investors, and if we just take the two sides of the scale and we say we have a private equity fund on one side and we have maybe a high net worth individual or a Middle Eastern family with a certain ego who wants to own something very luxurious but doesn't have really, it's more from a perception than anything else, then you have a totally different mindset than from the private equity fund, because the private equity fund, it's got to be, you purchase it, you improve it, and you sell it. It's as simple as that. And they have a window of something in between 5 and 7 years, and you got to be able to do that. Whereas a high net worth individual can sit on the property forever. Take Mohammed Al Fayed and the Ritz in Paris, right? They can close it for 2 years. There is not that pressure, but there the pressure will be on the status, on the guest service, on being the best in that field. And really, profit only comes at number 8 or number 9 because they want it to be a reflection of their family. And everything in between needs to work. So it's very important that you understand that from the start. And that if you work for a high net worth individual, okay, of course, you got to be profitable, but that's not the main target. Yeah. And usually what you have is that there is an unlimited or a very high amount of capex available for those families, whereas obviously on the private equity, you all got to make it work within a limited amount of capex. All the capex has got to be at enormous returns.
So the operational team are very, well, can influence that investment. They're very key to it.
Yeah, I think, but they need to understand, both parties need to understand each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing is, and I've said this many times before, but everyone who has their in-laws staying over for the weekend think that they understand how a hotel works. Now, you and I know that that's not the case. But they need to understand what the owner wants in very simple terms so that they can work towards. But simultaneously, the owner needs to understand certain basics about how the hotel works. Right. And that's, for example, if you come in with a super aggressive budget that you know in February, people, that you're not going to make it for the rest of the year, then the team is not going to be motivated. So you need to find that balance. And also the team needs to be able, and the management company or the brand need to be able to do their job as well. And that's what you see with high net worth individuals. They walk in, they own the place, they don't pay their bill, etc., etc. That needs to be controlled because it needs to be in a professional environment. And if you have that understanding, then people come closer together, and then you can have a good conversation about how to actually improve things.
Right. Okay. So how we are reporting to the owners and the investors is very important, the
Yeah.
reports that are going back to them. So
Yeah.
what does it look like this effective reporting? What does that look like?
Ooh. Again, it depends on the demands from the owner side, but I think it's also that there's a certain form of education. So I would like the owner to get a weekly business on the books, a weekly forecast for the next 3 months, so that they have a trend. I also think that you need to have transparency in forecasting. A hotel should not be scared to lower the forecast if something happens. I'll give you an example. If the gas price goes up tomorrow, or at the moment we're struggling with UBR, with business rates, right? That's going to stay, yeah. And then you can't say I'm going to reforecast 3 months, but I keep the rest of the budget. It just doesn't make sense. So if you do something and you have a trend, you got to reflect that. That's going to be on the cost side, and obviously also on the revenue side.
Yeah.
But you need to have that transparency, but you also need to present it in a format that is understandable for everyone. And owners and investors are not interested in a uniform system, 1,000 lines P&L. Yeah, you should be able to drill down, but that could all be explained. And ultimately, most investors are interested in EBITDA because that drives the valuation of the property.
So it's that clear communication.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it's not 80%, but 65% of my job is communication and
Yeah.
doing it right, and also being seen on property. I think it's important to be there. We're a people business, and that also applies for our employees, to actually be in the property and to have lunch in the canteen. Super
Yeah.
important. Yeah, it's there.
That's when you know you've made it as a consultant, when you get lunch in the canteen.
I ask for it, and then you get a panic the first time. And then, but I think because there you sit with the housekeepers, and there you sit with the receptionist, and you have a normal chat. I mean, and that's and what you find is that people are actually really proud of where they work and what they do.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yeah.
under very difficult circumstances, but you also get tiny little bits of what perhaps could improve, and you don't see that from a bird's eye. So it's a combination of two, because you need that bird's eye view in order to report back to ownership, but you also need that feeling of the operation.
So you're that middleman, aren't you,
That's
between
me.
the two, the
That's
middleman?
me. The
Okay,
two
so
or the three or the four,
oh,
because
right,
with white labels you have
yeah,
four
yeah,
now.
right.
So yeah.
So then tell me about the life cycle of the hotel asset. How does it
Right.
work?
Yeah, I mean, you start with an acquisition, and that could be anything. So someone has an idea and seen a building, seen a hotel, seen a piece of land, and I think the important thing is this, at that moment in time, that you're really honest and that you spend a good few weeks to look at the opportunities and create a feasibility that holds out for the next 10 years, so that an owner of investment has a benchmark to go back against throughout the period, ideally. I think that's super important. You really got to spend some time, spend some money on it without going for the investment or the refurbishment or the purchase or whatever you want to do, and do the whole due diligence package. Yeah, which incidentally is included in the course very well. We do a whole module on that.
Very good.
And make sure that you cross the T's and dot the I's. Make sure that you do sensitivities that say, what if occupancy falls down by 5-10%? What if the purchase price goes up? What if you look at all those scenarios, you look at it honestly, and you're not going to push things, because in a model, obviously, it's also very easy to, let's put £5 on the rate, right? And then let that run for 10 years. And then all of a sudden it all looks magical, but it has to be precise, because especially in the last few years, business is tough. I mean, you really got to make it work. Yeah, I mean, we had COVID, and then we had the whole pent up demand. But ever since the last 2 years, it's actually been quite tough. And costs have gone up, cost of living has gone up, minimum wage, national insurance, all that stuff has gone up. So you really got to make sure that you have a proper picture of that. And then you go through the acquisition, you do what you have to do, you find yourself a brand. And then it's that optimization, which I just described. Yeah, where you're really going to start working together. And it depends on what the whole period is. And the whole period could be as short as 18 months, and it could be as long as 10 years or longer in case of a family. Although I have to say that from my personal perspective, as an asset manager, after 4 or 5 years, you run out of steam. Yeah, and it would be good to find someone else and have a different intake, because, and similar you have with senior management in a hotel as well. You go blind a bit, and you're sort of, I wouldn't say running on empty, but it becomes sort of a standard. And then you need to start preparing for exit. And preparing for exit or another refurbishment is actually a repeat of what you do, but now you sit on the other side of the table. So you
In
need
what
to make
way?
sure,
What do you mean?
well, first you're the buyer and now you're the seller,
Okay.
right? But the best thing as a seller is to make sure that your house is completely in order.
Yeah.
Yeah, that everything looks good, that there is not, you don't go into the accounts department and oh my God, yeah, and where are the contracts and everything. So you really look at it as a purchaser and you do what is called vendor due diligence. You make sure that everything is hunky-dory, everything is perfect. And if something is not perfect, that's fine too. I think that's really important because you need to sell the upswing. No one's going to buy a hotel that's doing well because the next buyer needs to increase something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love to show the shitty rooms, and I love to show the nooks and the crannies. We say, "Oh, you could build a spa here."
Yeah. Yeah. Here are the
Yeah,
opportunities.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Here's look at that, look at that corner. But and that happens, and yeah, then go through the process of an exit, and then you roll on to the next one. So we're all in the same sort of world, and we all understand. You need to understand both sides of the table at any given time and see what they're looking for. But I think the most important thing, and people forget that sometimes, is it's all about the hotel. Every single one of us should not be there if it wasn't for a hotel, and we should not forget about that. So it's not just a commercial thing where you have to somehow make a profit. It's about the hotel. It's a
Yeah.
breathing, living thing. We deal with guests, and that's why,
Yeah.
like, for me, TripAdvisor is one of my most important KPIs.
Right.
It
Right.
really is. And I've got
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Courtyard Hotel at the moment, and I think we're number 73 in London. That's amazing, right? That is amazing. And that needs to be celebrated.
Yeah. Cool. You mentioned, and you're just talking here, Courtyard as well. You're talking about brands and management agreements, franchise agreements. So, what are the most common pitfalls that an owner might face, and how can they
I
be
think it's a lack
mitigated?
of understanding. It's a pure lack of understanding, and that's nobody's fault. But I see that as our role. It's really, if you have an investor, yeah, who is probably dealing with lots of things that you and I had no clue about, right?
Yeah.
And they might be in oil, they might be in gas, they might. I have one client who deals with airports, right? That's completely different. So
Yeah.
they look at things from their perspective, and then they go into a negotiation with a very large international firm, no matter which one it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who is only doing this. And then it's relatively easy. They need to be informed. I think that's the most important. They need to be informed and then make their decisions. I'll give you the important one is always the what's it called? The performance test. Yeah,
Okay.
now on the surface that looks like nothing, but a performance test is one of the very few opportunities where you actually can kick an operator out, or at least hold them to ransom and say, like, you guys are not doing what you're supposed to do. But it's just a line in a contract. It's just a clause. It's one page in 140 pages, etc., etc. You need to focus on those points and say, here we need to focus. Here we need to sit down. We need to breathe in, breathe out, and together we need to agree something that works again for the benefit of the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that performance test. Obviously, it should allow the operator to work within a frame because you don't want to nail them down completely. But it also should hold them to ransom within their competitive environment to make sure that they work well.
And if you are, well, I guess this all comes back to communication, isn't it? This
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
it's the thread that is running through all of this is for
Yep.
you as the asset manager or the owner's representative. You've
Yeah.
got to understand what the owner is looking for. You've got to be able to translate that down to operations.
Yeah.
You've got to also understand the brands and have that communication going throughout the, you know, this ecosystem, if you like.
Yeah.
So how important do you think it is from the asset management perspective, the asset manager, to help this communication to happen?
It's vital. But I mean, you're looking at one perspective, but obviously there's the other side of the coin as well, right? Because you need to educate the hotel people, yeah, of how
Right.
the investor is thinking, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to get people that value the property, yeah, because in most cases there's big loans sitting behind it, yeah, so they're going to value the property. And for a GM, financial controller, and director of revenue, sales, marketing, make sure that they understand what needs to be done there and how we can achieve that. And if that understanding exists, then you can get to a certain creativity that really works, and where the input from the hotel team could be good as well, because then they can come up with creative solutions and say, okay, you want to put this place for sale, but look around what's happening in the neighborhood. No, nothing is selling here, right? What if we do a very soft refurb, but we make it look really, really good? Yeah, and we take a year to do that, and we capitalize that refurb so it doesn't affect the P&L. Yeah, and then we maintain the same EBITDA. It looks a lot better, and then we can drive this harder and do something differently. And it's that creativity that you need. Yeah, because there might be a chief engineer in the hotel goes, you know what? I got lots of stuff sitting here and there, and I can do this. And you get that creativity. But normally the chief engineer and someone representing the investor will never talk. That's where it comes in. Because if you bring them together and you have a coffee or a pint and you do it from there, then it works.
Perfect. You make it sound very easy.
Yeah, it's the best job in the world. I love it. I love it.
So, as it is the best job in the world, and I'm going to go back to our HOSPA program now. The foundation certificate for that, which really is explaining how to look from the owner's perspective. Yeah. Who would you say would come on that course? Who would benefit from?
I think it'd be hugely beneficial. Going back to the last bit that we spoke about, I think it'd be hugely beneficial for general managers, for financial controllers, but also area. I mean, there's obviously a lot of clustering going around.
Yeah.
To get that perspective of what are the guys on the other side of the table thinking, and I think that's really important. I've had some people from revenue management, sales, and marketing equally good, but I also and I've actually sold the course to one of the GMs that I work with. So that is the link, and I think it's not something that is purely financial. It's just have a look at what is happening around the hotel. Yeah. And we could talk about that. I like to talk about it, as you've noticed by now. But
we will talk about it again in the future. Definitely.
But it's also that if someone I've got a guy at the moment who is director of sales. It's quite high up. He's really interested. Yeah. And how does my input then work out towards the valuation of a hotel and towards what the owner wants? And it will benefit anyone. So it's 4 or 5 hours a week. My phone is always open, always happy to talk about it, and it's actually quite fun.
Well, it sounds fun. And I'm sure it will be fun with you as the tutor. So thank you for your time today. That's been very educational for me too. And I shall speak to you soon.
Likewise. You take care.